Just give me a thumbs up. Welcome to another episode of the Less is More Sports Podcast. We got a loaded team on here today. As always, my trusted sidekick, Jacob Klucas, is on the show. The complete pain in my ass, Matt Spencer, has joined the show again. And our combat sports expert, Matt Wilson, and my cousin is joining us yet again. Now, unfortunately, the last time we had Matt on the show, we had some technical difficulties, but now we're actually getting a chance for the audience to get to know my cousin, and I think y'all are gonna like him, hopefully as much as me, or definitely more than Spencer. So, anyways, but I gotta open the show by saying this: that 2020 has been absolutely awful, unless you are one of two parties, Patrick Mahomes, and the Michigan State basketball recruiting. I don't know if y'all have been. I don't know if y'all have been following it. They get this it starts off, they get that transcendent talent in Imani Bates. And, who I'm looking at his 24/7 profile right now. He's the only player in 24/7 history that has a perfect 100% grade. Usually it's like 99 this or, 99.8 this. No, it is perfect 100 for Imani. The second recruit that they got really hit home for me because he was one of Duke's big targets, and that was Max Christie, the number one rated player out of the state of Illinois. Really good shooter, really long combo guard. But now they got another four-star center that is projected to go in the first round of the 2022 NBA draft, and Enoch Boyake, who's also in the 98 percentile grade. So, just what is the secret? Does anybody have any idea what is going on in East Lansing right now?
No, I literally told my boss when I was singing the center that you mentioned. I don't remember his name off the top, or I can't. But when I said it, went right up to my boss. I said, "So since when does Michigan State start just stealing 5-stars left and right? Because it hasn't happened before. Maybe your occasional one or two, but it's not been Tom Izzo's MO to go get the 5-stars. So." I'm not sure what exactly is going on. I don't know if it's a culture change at Michigan State. I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
It's kind of reminiscent to me is when, obviously John Calipari was one of the first coaches and the pioneers to recruit teams full of one-and-done players and these top prospects. Then we slowly saw Coach K get into that same mode as well at Duke. It seems to me that Coach Izzo's starting to jump on that bandwagon. Which I found very surprising just because the last NCAA tournament we did have a typical Izzo-style team actually knocked off the heavy one-and-done, the great one-and-done team that was in the tournament, and that Duke team with Zion, RJ, and Cam Reddish. So, I find it a little surprising, but, you can't deny the success they're having right now. Especially just the name Imani Bates alone is that's making headlines in the recruiting scene, just off the rip. So it's interesting.
The next transcendent star, I'm telling you.
I don't disagree with it. I'm more sold on Imani than Mikey Williams than I am with Mikey, but that's just me.
Personally, I think I've always been underneath the impression that if you get one, you'll probably get two or three because these guys travel the country together. They play on the AAU scene together. They're friends on social media, and then they kind of develop that bond, and then they kind of, okay, where are you going? And usually there's a leader in the group. And if he goes to that one school, you're going to have two or three follow. So that's really – I don't think there's any – stealing recruits, conspiracy theories behind it, especially with the hot water the NCAA blue blood programs are in. I just think it's you get one, you get two or three.
We've seen that as a Duke fan. I've seen that a couple of times, with Tyus Jones and Jahlil Okafor in their package deal, and they convinced Justice Winslow to join just a month later. And then when Trey Jones committed in 2018, he was able to talk Zion, RJ, and Cam to all come in as well. So, you're right. Recruits are so much more connected now than they were even from the time that me and Klucas were in the AAU circuit and even when Spencer was in his playing days. Social media has just been, wonders for that. They can connect just at the click of a button, and next thing you know, they're connected for life. So it's definitely an interesting atmosphere in the AAU circuit now.
It's really all that the country has right now. I've been talking to a lot of AAU coaches, and going with what's going on in the Commonwealth right now. High school sports being shut down, people not allowed to be on campus. Football in question. Even baseball. We'll probably get to Major League Baseball here soon, but AAU is somehow it's outside of government where we're going to enforce or fine you. And if you have a state open as one of your border states like Indiana, Ohio, you can go to these places and you can play. And a lot of our players have been doing that. Unfortunately, I just don't know what
because I know
high
a couple
school is going to have
players
to offer.
I know a couple players that even played here in Kentucky that play like over in Indiana, over in the Indiana AAU level.
Yep.
Well, a good friend of mine, he does a lot of these, these highlight films for a lot of these high school athletes in the area. His name's D. Stanton. Does some may
Great
know him
guy.
as Dead Stock. Yep,
Great
Dead Stock
guy.
Visuals. Very great
Former
guy.
teammate.
Yes, sir. Yes, he was, and former classmate with me at IUS. But that's how he's made a lot of money during this pandemic, is because with the AAU circuits opening up, he's able to go and get these highlights of some of these other guys where some of the, the bigger name highlight companies, they're kind of.
And I will say, with what he's doing compared to what everybody else does in Kentucky, what he's doing is actually putting people on notice.
Yep.
Exactly.
What he's going to do is change the. I don't want to say change it completely, but it's going to change the perspective of Kentucky high school athletes in terms of, specifically for basketball.
Him and T Nation Sports are both in that same category because they both are doing the same thing. They're really putting a lot of these Kentucky players on notice.
Can we get this guy free admission to these basketball games? Just saying.
Oh no, he should. Right. I know I've heard him tell me a couple parents have paid for his entry, but yeah,
they should.
They absolutely should.
One of those 3-minute videos doesn't. It's 2 hours. It's 2 hours of work. Minimum. That doesn't even include what you're doing at the game. Minimum 2 hours of work at home.
Exactly. He works his butt off for sure, and big shout out to him. But no, moving on, because I know Klucas has hella beef with the NFL Top 100 list, and I just want to. And from what I've been hearing, him and Spencer are about to go back and forth on this, and I can't wait just to sit back and hear this. So, Klucas, what about the NFL 100 list really got you pissed off, my man?
We'll just start with Patrick Mahomes is the third-rated quarterback on the list.
That's pretty bad. Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes is the not okay. If you want to make the argument, which I know Spencer's about to make, okay, Lamar statistically had a better season, yada. Okay. If you want to make the argument to me that Lamar deserves to be one, whatever. I'll debate it back and forth that he shouldn't be, but whatever. But to sit here and tell me that Patrick Mahomes, the Super Bowl MVP, the Super Bowl champion, the most talented quarterback we've probably ever seen, is the third-rated quarterback in the NFL behind Lamar and Russell Wilson? And I'm a huge Russell Wilson fan. But to put Russell Wilson in front of Patrick Mahomes? Come on now.
I don't know. I'm going to take this one last. I know you probably got a lot to say about Russell Wilson, but Russell Wilson, you play in Seattle behind a very questionable offensive line. He has to run for his life. He puts up gaudy numbers for at least the past 4 seasons, especially in fantasy. You split your matchups with San Francisco.
Let me interrupt
hold
you
on,
right
hold
there.
on,
Which
hold
with
on.
that same quarterback,
I didn't interrupt you. I did not interrupt you.
Order in the court. Spencer has the floor. Thank you, Klucas.
Just be a little civil right now. We can be off the chain here in a second. But and you also he puts up those statistics against the number one strength of schedule last year. Personally, I don't think if you switch Russell Wilson and Patrick Mahomes that Russell Wilson couldn't do what Patrick Mahomes did in Kansas City. I think Russell Wilson could do those things. So,
And I think Patrick Mahomes could do the same thing that Russell Wilson does in Seattle.
I don't think Patrick Mahomes could run for his life like Russell Wilson does. I don't think that's in his pedigree. But personally, I like Patrick Mahomes. I think his tenure, his longevity will surpass Russell Wilson and Lamar Jackson just because he's a little bit more of a pocket passer. But I don't disagree. I personally, if you look at the players at the end of the season versus when this vote was taken in the 1st of December, yeah, sure, Patrick Mahomes is number one. But the statistics also give a slight edge to Lamar Jackson as to why he would be number one either. So I could see why Lamar Jackson is number one, and I could see why. But there's no argument here. Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson, and Patrick Mahomes are the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and it's going to be great to watch if we get that opportunity this year.
Before Klucas rebuttals, I do want to add one thing. When you say that Lamar, Russell, and Mahomes are the 3 best quarterbacks in the league, and you don't think it's really a competition otherwise, I mean, given what you just said about Russell Wilson, about how he's got to run for his life, all that, so does that mean that you can't make that same argument for Deshaun Watson?
Well, Deshaun Watson, yeah. I mean, you could also make that same argument. The only reason why I don't put Deshaun Watson in that category is because he's already been injured. He's got that ACL tear underneath him, and
he's had some time taken away.
He really has. He's taken a step back because of that injury. It doesn't take it away from how great Deshaun Watson was in the past or how good he is now. But I think he's in that second tier.
And I'll say, me and Les kind of touched on it 2 weeks ago. It's right now, yes, it's Mahomes, Lamar, Patrick. No, those are the top 3 quarterbacks, and that's it. Those are the top 3 level guys. If it's not after this year, I'm telling you, Kyler Murray's entering that discussion.
Absolutely, yeah. We talked about that a couple weeks ago. I mean, I think he's in a lot of the same situation as Russell Wilson right now. As far as right now goes, is that he's having to run for his life. I mean, he's playing in that same NFC West that is a very strong strength of schedule, that has to play San Francisco twice, that has to play Seattle twice, that has to play. I'm not even going to go.
Yeah, and that just got a little bit better because of adding Jamal Adams.
Yeah.
I just don't like the mobile quarterback. I don't like him. Never have. Probably never will. I understand that the game is probably shifting a little bit, but when you reduce the hash marks like you do in college from very wide to very narrow, the linebacker has more room and a better angle to take at the quarterback or anybody in the backfield. And so that's the reason why. And the linebackers are faster in the NFL than they are in Division I college. So
everybody's faster in the NFL than college.
That's what concerns me the most, is that you have a better angle to attack the backfield before they get to the edge, and it only takes one hit. So, I mean, you saw that last year. I think with Patrick Mahomes, your heart stops. Every fantasy owner's heart stops. Every Chiefs fan, their heart stopped. Talking about a dislocated kneecap, and it's up towards your thigh, and it's just like.
But I think it's all a balance, though, just like anything else, because given to where the game is transcending towards now, you definitely need to be mobile, but you don't need to be reliant on your mobility as well, too. It's a lot like Mahomes and a Rodgers and a Wilson style, to where you run when you have to, but you don't want to just have too many designed runs go in your favor. That's why some people call them haters, but it's the reality that a lot of people are not high on the longevity of Lamar Jackson because of how many design runs he gets. We saw it at very early stages in Washington with Robert Griffin III. He was getting a lot of design runs, and then that pretty much ruined his career.
All right. Now, hold on. I'm going to pause on this for a second. Design quarterback runs were not what killed Robert Griffin's career. That was not no. It was a proven
the Redskins organization.
And a story. I mean, yeah, we could just start right there. He played for the Washington football team. That should just tell you all you need to know right there.
Sorry, shouldn't be using Redskins. My fault.
So It was a known fact in a story that came out that his offensive line did not like Robert Griffin III. They didn't like him at all for I don't know exactly what reason. I don't know if he was a dickhead in the locker room or if he just had a bad attitude, whatever the case may be. They just didn't like him. And they literally came out and said, we purposely used to let defenses slip through to hit him.
Mm-hmm. No, I remember seeing that too.
And so, I mean, yes, is it a little bit of design quarterback run? 100%. But
absolutely, I'll say that's my point.
You don't really stand a chance when your offensive line is purposely letting guys come back through the backfield to hit you.
I remember when that story broke, and the first thing that just came to my mind was that scene in The Longest Yard where they figured out that Adam Sandler was point shaving again, and then he just hikes the ball, and everybody just lets all the guards just run through and just clobber him. That's the first thing that came to my mind. No, I mean,
and not only that, I think he played on a torn ACL in the playoff game.
He did.
And Washington made him play on a torn ACL in the playoff game.
I wasn't going to go that far, but I do remember it that way.
Had a lot of designed runs on that torn ACL as well.
Not everybody.
That was a brutal.
That was a brutal. Everybody could be Deshaun Watson and play on an ACL. And he was playing against a Legion of Boom defense that night.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, not only is it raining and cold, you're playing against Earl Thomas, Cam Chancellor, Bobby Wagner, Richard Sherman.
So, was that your only beef with the NFL Top 100, though? Just Patrick Mahomes, or was there more?
No, I didn't really have any other beef. I know a lot of people had beef that Michael Thomas was the highest-rated receiver. Outside of that,
given the season he had, I don't have a huge beef with that. Do I think Michael Thomas is the best receiver in football? Personal opinion, no. But the season he just had, I understand why. But
my issue is when we do these top 100 lists, I get that they're doing it based off a 2019, 2020 season, but I think when you're doing these, you have to take into a fact of based off how they play, and then also like what type of guy that is, like what type of player that is. We all know, okay, when the Bleacher Report top 100 list came out for the NBA. Now, guys like Spencer and Dominique are going to go on there and say that Anthony Davis was the best Laker this year, but yet he ranked 8th on the list compared to LeBron's 2nd on the list. So had AD probably maybe had a little bit better of a season in terms of pure dominance, in terms of scoring and everything? Yes. Is that more of LeBron giving him the reins and saying you're the number one scorer? Yes. But they're also taking into a fact of it's LeBron James. We can't really rank him that low in terms of just because he had a tad bit of a down year in scoring.
He did have a tad bit of a down year in scoring, but he also led the NBA in assists too, though. So, and also a stat worth mentioning, though, is that when LeBron James is on the floor, he assists on 48% of the Lakers' points. And when he's also on the floor, the Lakers are second in the NBA in points efficiency. So, I think that goes to show more of LeBron's dominance than your basic box score that Anthony Davis has. Anthony Davis is a great player. Don't get me wrong. But if we're talking about actual impact and actually who has more of an outcome on a win or a loss in a game, it's LeBron. And that's always been at least my argument with LeBron on how he's the best player of my generation. I can't speak for those LeBron stands that we're talking about pre-show that say that
like this one right here.
Like you? Yeah.
No, like Spencer.
I'm a LeBron stan.
He's not a LeBron stan.
No, I'm talking about the haters, in terms of the haters.
I'm talking about the stands right now.
I don't think he was talking about haters, though, but you're really getting ahead of yourself there, Klucas.
I think he's ready to call.
I've never been a hater of LeBron. Never been a hater of LeBron. The only thing that I don't like about LeBron is that he's an Ohio State fan. And the second that he left Miami, he went to an Ohio State game.
Oh, my God.
Spencer just has just undying hatred for Ohio State. I don't know what's worse, and Klucas might be able to help me out with this. I wonder what we'll see first. Will we see Kentucky fans forgive Christian Laettner, or are we going to see Spencer forgive Ohio State?
Kentucky fans forgive Christian Laettner. That's what you're going to see first.
That's just crazy to me. I don't know. It was a bad call. It wasn't even Ohio State's fault, but because Ohio State was the beneficiary of a bad call, it's like, I'm going to hate them 20 years after the fact.
Well, it's not as cool to say, Buckeyes or than Terry Porter, I mean, but Terry Porter also did send his daughter to grad school at Ohio State. So just going to put that out there. Of course, nobody here knows who Terry Porter is.
I know who Tracy Porter is, unfortunately.
Yeah, I do too.
Terry Porter was the referee in the back
the ref
of the end zone
that made the call.
Who didn't even have the best
make the call
angle
originally and then made the call.
Didn't have the best angle on it. And the guy in front of the guy who had the best angle on it was calling it incomplete the entire way. But anyways, moving back to the NFL. I mean, so
but yes, outside of Patrick Mahomes being third on the QB list, that was really my only beef that I had with the list. I thought there was a couple players, like if you go down to the 60s and 70s, there were a couple players I thought that were a little bit too low. But I don't have the list in front of me right now to go that far, and I really don't want to – I really no need to go in depth about it. But there are a couple players I've seen on there that I was like, I don't know if they really deserve to be that low on the list.
Right. You usually have those every year. I noticed Harrison Smith, I remember, was really low, and I thought that was surprising. But no, I'm kind of with Klucas. I mean, and with Spencer made a great point that a lot of the voting happened.
Is that Spencer's dog, or is that the wolf out in front?
That's definitely his dog. I don't think that – no, it's definitely not the wolf that was on the show last week. But anyways, no, back to just lost my train of thought for a second. But no, back to the original thing we were talking about. I'm with Klucas in the sense that Mahomes should be the number one rated player on the list, but at the same time, Spencer made a great point about a lot of the voting came before the playoffs, and that's where, to me, Mahomes made a lot of his leeway. And definitely an interesting stat that I want to mention is that there's one player in NFL history that has been a part of a winning season in his first 8 seasons, and that's Russell Wilson. So I think that's definitely worth mentioning, and kind of as we were talking about earlier, is I think a great testament to just how overall valuable Wilson has been in Seattle over his career.
Sure, absolutely. Russell Wilson, like I said, I do think that I don't know whether or not it would be the same. It might be a little bit better, might be a little bit worse, but I do think Russell Wilson could benefit by being in Kansas City. If you were to play that if game, and I hate playing the if game, but I do think if you switch their roles, Russell Wilson would have more success.
Then if you were Mahomes,
I just don't think Seattle. I don't think that's
more success than Patrick Mahomes.
Are you saying? Hold on, question. Are you saying more success? Are you saying more success than what Mahomes is having in Kansas City, or if you switch them, Wilson would have more success in Kansas City than Mahomes would have in Seattle?
I would think Wilson would have more team success in Kansas City. We already know that he enjoys. We already know that he enjoys statistical success right now by being in Seattle. If he had an offensive guru with him, like Andy Reid, and the weapons that Patrick Mahomes has, I'm not knocking Patrick Mahomes. I'm not knocking. I'm just saying. Russell Wilson's situation has been less than ideal the last 3 or 4 seasons in Seattle on the offensive end.
And
I'm not arguing that. But my question is, would he put up better numbers, statistically better numbers than what Patrick Mahomes is right now?
He already puts up some very similar statistics already.
My question is, and I'm going to go back to my question. When you made the statement, are you saying that he would have more success in Kansas City than what Mahomes is currently having? Or are you saying that if you switch the two, Wilson would have more success in Kansas City?
Personally, I don't think you would notice a difference.
Okay.
I don't think
in
you would
Kansas
notice
City.
a difference.
Okay.
Yeah. If you put Russell Wilson in a Patrick Mahomes jersey in Kansas City, I don't think you would notice any difference.
Well, you would notice one's significantly taller than the other. That's about
how
it.
tall is Patrick Mahomes?
Oh, he's about 6'2", 6'3".
And Russell Wilson's like 5'11".
Yeah.
5'11" on a good day.
Yeah, I'll say.
He was standing on cleats on concrete, right?
Yeah.
No, getting to Lamar, though, I mean, Lamar had an amazing season last year. Wife's
We
got
got
some
Stephanie
harsh
chiming in?
words. Yes, she is. No, but he increased his completion percentage to 66.1, which is highest in the league, tied with Russell Wilson, outside of quarterbacks who played less than 12 games. You got Drew Brees, I think, threw for 67%, but he only played in 11 games. Highest passer rating, highest QBR, one of your big things, less QBR. And then we're not even talking about the rushing. I'm not even going to talk about the rushing aspect because it was just absolutely insane what he did last year running the ball, which will probably get him hurt in the future. But the one statistic that I want to point out that people probably don't know about, and I compared just for simple comparison because, when we see Patrick Mahomes throwing the ball, it's usually the long bombs to Tyreek Hill, the 15 yards over the middle to Kelsey. I mean, he does a phenomenal job throwing the football. But when you look at Lamar Jackson's in-air yards per attempt and in-air yards per completion, they are tied with Patrick Mahomes and better on the completion end than Patrick Mahomes. And so, like I said, not knocking Patrick Mahomes, probably should have been number one. But when you look at Lamar Jackson and what he did last year, it was simply phenomenal. And personally, when people were filling out their ballots in December, that's what they were filling them out for. Lamar Jackson had a phenomenal year, defied the critics, who were against him coming out of college. And those are just his passing numbers. Completion percentage, 66.1. And I know that I said I was going to hit on Mike Vick. Mike Vick never threw above 61%. In fact, most of the time he threw 55, 56, 57%. So personally, when you look at Lamar Jackson and when Mike Vick says that he's already better than me, yeah, his season last year alone, he's already done what Mike Vick did. He's on the cover of Madden. And he's already done what more than Mike Vick will ever do, MVP of the NFL. So, of course, longevity is a question with Lamar Jackson. And, I think them using a 3 tight end system, will help, giving him some extra blockers. But Lamar had a phenomenal year, and I cannot disagree with them giving him the number one nod. Just can't. So it's not an argument. Now, if you want to sit there and say eye test and Patrick Mahomes is going to have the better career, not going to argue that. Patrick Mahomes is probably going to have a better career, and the eye test does indicate that Patrick Mahomes is probably going to be better. But when you look at the numbers are a little startling. And not only that, I want to say that a lot of NFL guys out there have a little bit of an issue with a mobile quarterback, given what they've seen in the past with Vince Young, with RG3. Some of these guys who kind of a one-hit wonder and they go away. And so there's a little bit of a stigma. I have that stigma when I look at mobile quarterbacks. I'm not the biggest fan of Lamar's style. Not the biggest fan of Lamar's style. But should he have been number one? Absolutely. There's no reason to sit there and say he shouldn't have been number one because the statistics back it up.
Like based on the regular season, Lamar definitely had the most dominant regular season. I don't think we'll argue that. I mean, the Ravens went 14-2. Lamar and like all-purpose yardage are like a match made in heaven. And while you talk about the critics, I'll be the first to admit I had plenty of critics. I had plenty of criticism on Lamar coming out of Louisville, some of which he's proven wrong, others which are still alive to this day, and we'll get into that in a minute. But I also want to address your statement on Vic, because when you brought it up in the group chat earlier this week, I didn't really know what you meant. Are you trying to say that Lamar is better than Vic, or were you saying like Lamar is more impactful than Vic? I wasn't 100% clear.
Lamar is better than Vic.
Okay, so here comes my second question now. What do you think Vic would have done if he played in an NFL era that was more spread out the way Lamar is?
I mean, probably
Or
would
if he
have
had
ran
an
for some more
offense that
yards.
was built, or if he had an offense that was built for his game, like Baltimore has done for Lamar.
I mean, the closest we've seen to having an offense that's built for him is when the one successful year Vic had in Philadelphia with Andy Reid, who's kind of funny how we mentioned back to Andy Reid and success.
But even that year with Andy Reid, still that was his highest completion percentage year, 61%.
It was 61%.
Yeah. So Lamar is a proven worker, and he's working very hard. And he's a good guy, but
another thing I want to bring up too, though, is that you say that Lamar has already accomplished more, and with the MVP, with the Madden rating, and all that, that's hard to argue. My thing is, Vic actually made deeper playoff runs than Lamar. So for me,
he was 2-5 in the playoffs,
but he made it to an NFC Championship game though. Lamar's still 0-2.
Okay, so he's played 2 seasons and he's played in 2 playoff games.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not ready to give him that crown as more accomplished just yet, but he's definitely on his way, and he's looking like he's going to be more accomplished here very soon. But the thing is also with me for Vic is –
don't take my word for it. Take Vic's word for it.
I mean, that's fine. But my thing is, when you originally asked that question, my mind went towards more as that you were asking who's more impactful. And to me, that's Vic. Vic did as far as Vic's style, he
absolutely.
Vic opened the doors for these mobile quarterbacks. These not just these mobile quarterbacks, these quarterbacks with the athleticism and speed of skill positions to play behind center. He also opened the doors in a lot of ways for the black quarterback to have success in the NFL and to go very high in the draft. We have countless stories. Doug Williams, very controversial.
I would say Doug Williams and Warren Moon opened that door before Vic, but
that's not yes, but not to where I was going with that. Right. I was going as far as being drafted high. Vic was the first African American quarterback to be the number 1 pick in the draft. And that's more or less where I'm going at it. He actually opened the door for teams to be comfortable taking these quarterbacks very highly. And so as far as from a transcendent aspect, there is no Lamar Jackson without Mike Vick.
Well, sure, yeah. I'm not going to argue that angle. The only angle that I'm arguing is on the field production.
And that kind of goes back to my question too, though. The offenses in today's game, they're so much more spread out versus the basic I formation that we saw in the Vic era. I don't know. I mean, they're both great athletes. I mean, who's to say Lamar wouldn't have success then, or Vic would have equal success to what Lamar's having now? We don't know. But
I would like to touch on just the offense of being built around Lamar. I mean, that offense, his first season that he really actually played, was built around Flacco. And he stepped in and he had a phenomenal run. I think they were out of playoff contention, and he put them in playoff contention with you're going to have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember somewhere in the neighborhood of them being 6-2. They had a losing record. They ended up being 6-2 when he was in there, and they lost to the Colts.
They lost to San Diego in the postseason.
That's right. They lost to San Diego in the postseason. So he ended up being about 7-3, 6-2 from what I remember. So that first year, I mean, didn't put up the gaudy statistics that he did last year, but that's with an off season and preparation. Why wouldn't you build an offense around your quarterback?
No, that's a smart thing to do.
Any football team that doesn't do that, I saw a great point that was made the other day. Is look at Alex Smith versus Patrick Mahomes with the same offense. And Alex Smith had, Who's the running
Alex
back?
Smith had a year in Kansas City where he didn't even throw a touchdown to a single receiver.
Who's the running back that they had? They got
They had Jamal Charles.
Yes. No. Was it Jamal Charles or was it somebody else?
Are you talking about the Pro Bowler?
The one who got shipped off to Cleveland.
Kareem Hunt.
Yes. Man.
Mahomes had Kareem Hunt.
Alex Smith had him for a year, didn't he, too? No?
Yes, he did. I take that back.
Yeah.
Kareem Hunt, his breakout year in Kansas City was the year of Alex Smith. It was the year they drafted Mahomes, and they had Mahomes sit behind Alex Smith that whole year.
Okay.
Yep, you're right. And then Mahomes had Kareem Hunt for like the first, 5 or 6 games or whatever, and then that's when the incident happened.
But that was wrapping it up with Lamar. That was my point with Lamar. You look at some of the statistics, he improved his passing game in one season from 58% to 66.1%. And he put him up there with the elite quarterbacks. Doesn't throw as much as the elite quarterbacks, but he's shown that he's not one dimensional. So
my biggest knock Lamar's play in terms of his throwing and everything isn't my knock on him anymore.
Did you say anymore?
Yeah, anymore.
Oh.
Now he does have questionable decisions at times, and I think that's what's leading into my next point. My biggest knock on him is his playoff performances and the fact that he cannot play from behind.
That was always my knock on Lamar.
He can't play from behind. His game style and the way that he plays and the way that Ravens offense is not built to play from behind. To quote Colin Cowherd a couple weeks ago, he had said when Patrick Mahomes and them were down 24 whatever to Houston in the playoff game, there wasn't a single person out there that said this game was over because Patrick Mahomes built.
I said it was over.
Well,
you were hoping
less than a quarter. You were proven wrong. I want to say that right now.
24-0. I mean, not many teams come back 24-0. I mean,
not many teams have Patrick Mahomes either.
But when you look at Patrick Mahomes'
not
game,
many teams have Tyreek Hill as well.
It's built to it, but his game and his play styles, you can come from behind with his play style and the way that they run their offense.
Because the deep ball.
Right. And because they can literally, they're like the Golden State Warriors of the NFL. They can score on you in a heartbeat. So, then when you go back and you look at Baltimore, it's just like he said when Tennessee was up 14-6 at halftime on Baltimore, and then they came right out in the second half and they scored on the first drive. They go up 21-6. It's just like Colin said. I thought the game was over because Baltimore's their play style is not built to come from behind. Their play style is
I didn't think the game was over, to be honest.
The play style is to have a lead, and because they're a run-oriented team, is to run and pound the ball and run the clock out.
Mm-hmm.
That's their game style. Lamar is not – I won't say he's not capable because obviously he's capable of a lot of things. We saw that this past season. But right now, based off what we know, his play style and the way that the Baltimore Ravens play is not built to come from behind.
Well, I'll give you an example.
It takes too much time off the clock for one.
Well,
sure.
I'll give you an example with the 06 Patriots versus the 07 Patriots. The 06 Patriots had no weapons, nothing. And they jumped out quickly on the Colts in the 06 AFC Championship game, and that was their style. They jumped out early on the Chargers, who had that great year with LT and the Phillip Rivers. And the Colts came back and won in the end. But then you flip the script and you add Randy Moss, you add a ton of weapons, and Brady's suddenly throwing for 50 touchdowns. So I do think that the Andy Reid connection with Patrick Mahomes, it reminds me of Big 12 offense.
and you see, and that was the knock. You remember last year when everybody, me and you were the only ones, not this past season, but the season before that one. Me and you, I swear, were the only ones on Facebook saying the Patriots are going to beat Kansas City. Yeah, Kansas City could put up 50, but they give up 60.
Yeah,
because they couldn't play defense.
Worst defense in the league.
So That's how that, and especially when you're giving Tom Brady to play against a team that can't play defense. I mean,
and I think that'll be the problem. I think that's part of the problem that you saw.
And they addressed that problem though this past year.
Mm-hmm.
They went and they traded for Frank Clark.
I would say they temporarily addressed it. Yeah, they made a temporary fix to get him a Super Bowl ring, but I think this is still going to be an ongoing issue that we have. And it's a point that Spencer said many times in the past. When you have an explosive offense like that can just score at will and score so quick, it tires out your defense, having to always transition from going to the bench, going back onto the field, and being on line drive. So it doesn't matter if you're going to have the Frank Clarks or the Honey Badgers on defense. If you're scoring that quick and you're giving your defense that many possessions, it's going to wear them down eventually, and that they're going to give up a lot of points in the process.
Well, not only that, but you think about what Tennessee did to Baltimore in that game. It was kind of predictable because I remember predicting Lamar's next pick. And the reason why was you sit on the bench, you get frustrated. It reminded me of Peyton Manning when his defenses that Peyton had over those years couldn't get off the field and get Peyton the ball. Peyton would go out, he would have a 3-and-out, and the defense would be on the field for the next 8 minutes because they were killing the clock. And so as a quarterback, you're sitting over there for it's 8 minutes of game time, but it's really 25 minutes of real time. And you're getting frustrated. And you're like, man, I got to go out there and make something happen. And if you remember the movie Replacements, that's quicksand. You go out there, you try to get it all back at once, and next thing you know, you're throwing a pick. And so that pick by Lamar was actually predictable because he was forcing the issue, trying to get everything back at once. And I think Patrick Mahomes, he will experience a little bit of that going forward if they don't rectify these defensive issues.
And he experienced it a little bit, not to bring this game up specifically because we're Colts fans, but you experience it a little in the regular season when you're watching, when you know all I got to do is get the ball back and we can score. But you got like Indianapolis. Indianapolis, to me, again, not saying it just because I'm a Colts fan, came out with a perfect game plan in the regular season last year of how to beat Kansas City. You get your stops on defense.
Tennessee used that game plan.
Right. You get your stops on defense, but then outside of that, you run the damn ball. Run the damn ball. Exactly. Pound the ball up the middle. Throw short, quick routes that are just going to get you your first downs, and that's how you beat Kansas City. I think we held Kansas City to 13 points last year, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, so that's your game plan against a team like Kansas City. But to go back to what we were talking about, when your defense is constantly on the field because you can score so quickly. Yes, there's that, but there's also Patrick Mahomes' contract he just took that comes into a factor of can you keep talented enough guys on the defense to sustain that.
Oh, yeah,
that was one of the things that I was actually walking around thinking about today, thinking about the show and thinking about Patrick Mahomes was he's got his Super Bowl ring. He's got his $500 million. Is he going to be as hungry as he was last year? Kind of like that MJ, kind of like that Tom Brady, kind of like that LeBron James, where it doesn't matter how much they get paid. They love to play the sport. They're hungry all the time. They want that next ring. Is Patrick Mahomes like that? And we'll find out here in a couple of years.
And what I compared it to when we did the show about his contract, I know you weren't on for that, Spencer. I think that was the week that you were in Vegas.
Oregon, you had the Oregon recruit on.
It might have been. But we had talked about. I said and I told Les. I said what I'm hoping it's not becoming. I hope it's not another Aaron Rodgers situation. Oh. Talented quarterback wins a Super Bowl, gets his money, and we don't see anything else from him again.
No, I mean Aaron Rodgers did have a 15-1 season after he won a Super Bowl.
Well, he means like nothing as far as not winning a Super Bowl.
As far as a Super Bowl.
Sure. And then he had that debacle on the onside kick with Seattle.
Yeah, I don't want to see him this be his only Super Bowl appearance for the next 10 years.
And Super Bowls are so finicky like that too, because you thought Marino was going to get back to one.
So
Colts
that's my
fans
only
probably
thing.
thought we were going to the Super Bowl this year, and then Andrew Luck retires, and
True.
yeah,
True.
This was our year. Luck doesn't retire.
But anyways, no, I want to transition it real quick because we haven't heard anything from Matt all show, and we got to get to him. So for those who follow combat sports, know that a big headliner just is set for September 12th, and that is the return of Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. Here is our combat sports expert, Matt Wilson, who is going to break this down. Matt, the floor is yours.
All right, guys, man. When this fight first got announced, I was over the moon excited. This should have happened 20 years ago. That's when both of those guys were at the top of their game. That's when it should have happened. Not now. They're both 50 plus. It is what it is. It's still, for the purist out there, it's going to be something special. Here's the deal, though. The more and more that I hear about it, they're trying to protect these guys, and I get it. But if Roy Jones Jr. especially, you know what you're getting into if you step in the ring with Mike Tyson, whether he's 20 or 50. You know what you're getting, okay? The guy's going to come out, and he's going to throw at you. Whether you like it or not, he's throwing. The deal is so it's 8 3-minute rounds. It's an exhibition. There's not even going to be any judges, right? So they're wearing 12-ounce gloves. Even the commissioner came out and he said, these guys aren't going to be coming out trying to knock each other out. I don't want to see that. I just want to see them showcase their ability. Well, at this point in the game, what are they going to show you that they didn't show you 25 years ago? Realistically, I mean, that's when those guys were at the height of their careers. Mike Tyson, when he was 25, showed you everything that you needed to see outside of the Mike Tyson that's 50. He's not going to show you anything different. It is a little different as far as this goes. Mike Tyson's last fight was 15 years ago. A lot of people don't realize that. It was in 2005, and he lost that fight to a guy named Kevin McBride. I would put that name up against anybody. I guarantee you a majority of people out there don't know who that is. McBride had a decent career. I think he was like 46-29 over his career. Not great, not horrible, just one of those deals. Now, Roy Jones Jr. fought 2 years ago. He fought 2018, actually won that fight. He's been on a long winning streak. A lot of people don't realize, man, Roy Jones Jr. has only lost 9 fights in his whole career, and he's won 66. So, it's just one of those deals. I know a lot of people say it's going to be the size thing. You think of Mike Tyson, you think of that, just a brick wall coming at you, just throwing everything that he's got. Roy Jones Jr. has always been on the smaller end of the spectrum. When he fought heavyweight, it was back in, I think, 2003, and he weighed 196 pounds fighting in the heavyweight division. Won a heavyweight title at 196 pounds. That guy, he's phenomenal. He was, I seen a stat today, it blew my mind. He started his career at middleweight, won a heavyweight title, and was the first fighter to do that in 106 years.
Wow.
So, not a lot of people realize that. He's also only the second guy ever to be a light heavyweight title holder, step up to heavyweight, win the title there. And Michael Spinks is another, great boxer. A lot of guys know he was the first guy to do it. I know what the commissioner's saying. I know he's like, we don't want to see any knockouts. And they even said if one guy gets a cut, it's automatically stopped. Even just one cut, it's stopped. They're done. I tell you what I envision. I think that first round is going to be wicked. I think Mike Tyson's going to come out and try to knock Roy Jones Jr.'s head off. And if Jones Jr. is smart, he'll do what he's done his whole career and wear that guy out and beat him in the later rounds. But, like I said, both these guys are 50 plus. It's an exhibition. You never know what could happen. They could just go out in the middle and swing. I hope that's not what happens, but it's possible.
Given what we just heard from Mike Tyson, and don't worry, I'm going to play the video here in a minute, but I think your prediction of what Tyson's game plan is against Roy Jones is pretty predictable. And for those who haven't heard the tape, I'm going to play it right now.
Real awkward silence. Go figure. Leslie isn't prepared.
Wait, did y'all not hear that?
No, not at all.
Mm-mm.
Oh, that is disappointing.
Can
why I
you
just
just
said-
give us a?
I know the art of fighting.
Here it is.
That's what I was studied. That's why I'm so feared. That's why they feared me when I was in the ring, because I was annihilated. That's all I was going for. And now those days are gone. It's empty. I'm nothing. I'm working on getting the art of humbleness. Can you believe in me? That's the reason why I'm crying, because I'm not that person no more. And I miss them. Because sometimes I feel like a bitch. Because I don't want that person to come out, because if he comes out, hell is coming with him.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Hell is coming with them. That is the clear quote right there.
I think Tyson has a ton of demons in there.
I think that's man. I think he's got more demons than the fucking Babadook, but that's beside the point. But anyway, no, I can't wait. I mean, obviously, just the names alone are just attractive enough. But when you hear that, when Tyson, like you said with Tyson, some of the things you think of, for me, it's such just a feared presence inside that ring. I mean, he's one of the most feared men to have ever stepped inside that ring, and to hear that he feels that he is no longer worth anything because he has lost what made him great, and for him to want to step inside that ring and prove it again, he's headhunting. Enough said for me. I mean, but I gotta ask though, Matt, you kind of seem like you're leaning more towards Roy though.
I am, and here's why, man. Roy's been more active within the last even 10 years. He's been much more active, but here's why. A lot of people don't know, man, for probably a stretch of 10 to 15 years, Roy Jones was the consensus pound for pound best in the entire world for a period of about 10 or 15 years. And that doesn't happen very often. And that guy, man, he's so smart. He's so calculated. I think he's good. Now, even, the great Muhammad Ali, I have said all along, and it's a pretty common feeling that, Ali's the best to ever do it. He's the best to ever lace up a pair of gloves. He's the best to ever do it. He even said back, he was older and he was already starting to decline health-wise and all this, and Tyson was on his way up, and they asked in an interview once who would win prime on prime. And of course, Tyson was being humble. He was in the presence of greatness. He was like, I think Ali would get me. He was fast. He was this and he was this. And Ali even said, I would try to implement the rope-a-dope, but if Mike Tyson had me against the ropes, he would probably kill me. That just proves to you how powerful that man was. And this is Ali that fought the George Foreman that people thought he was going to kill Ali in the ring. They thought he was going to kill him in the ring. So, for him to say that, and then, but I believe that Jones is going to use the ring to his advantage. He's smart enough not to get cut off. He's going to dart, dip, and dodge. And then you'll see in the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th rounds, Roy Jones will start picking him apart. He'll start using that jab. Roy Jones always carries one hand here and one hand swinging low. He'll pop that jab out. He'll keep Tyson at bay. And eventually, I know that they say a decision, nobody will win by the decision. It's only a TKO or KO. But in reality, if you watch the fight, you can tell who wins and loses. I don't think I want another loss.
Will there be an unofficial scorecard online?
I'm sure that there will. I'm positive that there will be people out there scoring the fight. In house, there's not even going to be judges in the
Right.
So that's just one of those deals. Now I see this fight going one of two ways. Tyson will knock out or cut Roy Jones within the first 2 rounds, or if it goes beyond 3 rounds, Roy Jones Jr. is going to win the fight just based upon, he's going to wear Tyson out. Tyson, that was the big knock on him back in the day anyway, was that he couldn't keep it up for 15 rounds.
Right.
So, he was 25 years old then. He's 50 now. You can't convince me that he's in better shape now than he was when he was 25. It's just, and I know it's only 8 rounds as compared to 15, but it's still a concept. I think Tyson will gas as the fight goes, and Roy Jones will pick him apart as it continues to go on.
Very good insight from our combat sports expert. But also, I got to ask, because it is the undercard, even though you kind of gave me that look when we were talking pre-show. So what do you think about the undercard fight between Nate Robinson and Paul?
Man, I don't know. Like I told y'all in the pre-show, before we started recording, I absolutely cannot stand gimmick fights. Can't stand them. I never have, right? The gimmick fights that I enjoyed were when people that thought that they were all that got in the ring against Butterbean and he took their head off.
That was a big mistake. Butterbean is not somebody you want to step in the ring with.
No, exactly. That was my idea of a gimmick fight. That's what I like to see. But, Butterbean was legit. That dude was, he was a legit boxer. He wasn't just some big guy out here that knew how to throw a punch. He knew what he was doing. Mm-hmm. But, these two guys, Nate Robinson, obviously I've always liked him just because, he's always been the little guy. He's always been explosive. He's always doing all this. And then the Paul, I don't know. He thinks now he got kicked off of YouTube. He's trying to find another avenue, which I'm all for, right? If you've got the work ethic and you want to keep going, do that. But to get in a boxing ring and think that you're on par with some of the best amateurs in the world, it's just not. It's not comparable to me. You're talking about fighting Nate Robinson, as opposed to going and fighting a junior champion, right? If he stepped in the ring with a junior champion, that fight wouldn't last 2 minutes. It would be over with pretty quickly. So I don't like it. I understand, the name value. He's fighting Nate Robinson. He's a big internet sensation. I get all that. I get what they're doing. Me personally, I just don't care for it.
So he does have the one win, but kind of elaborate on that one win. What was the deal with that? I didn't really get to see it.
When he fought KSI, is that who you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, so they actually fought twice. I think that they split the wins. Again, two internet guys, two big internet sensations, just had an online beef. It was all scripted, of course. So they had this beef, met in a boxing ring, and they just went at it. It's really, it would be the same if you and I were big internet stars and just decided, oh, hey, Les, I'm going to come up to your house. We'll set up a boxing ring and we'll just box in the backyard.
Oh, okay.
I mean, really, that's what it all boiled down to. I'm sure they made a lot of money, just based upon the internet value and what people donated and that kind of thing. I'm sure they made a ton of money. But to say that was an actual amateur bout, come on now. You can't do that. You can't. I don't know who gave him the win, like officially, but you can't do that. You just can't.
That's very fair.
Spencer, maybe that's what we need to do to get views on the show. Let's just start a beef between me and you, and we'll set up a WWE ring, and we'll just.
I think me and Matt Wilson, we'll gladly just officiate that fight. And
I've got one, man. I think Bless needs to go off with our boy Big Dog in fantasy.
Who?
Big Dog,
Which one is that?
You don't know who that is?
No.
Drafted Lamar and then gave him up, and then
yeah, that guy. Yes, I mean,
I'm pretty sure I could promote this fight as he's made the playoff once, and you haven't made the playoffs. The only person in our fantasy league who hasn't.
Hey,
made
I don't
the
know.
playoffs.
I don't know if you heard me earlier, Matt, when we were talking about Russell Wilson. When you said Russell Wilson's doing all these great fantasy numbers, I said, "Yep." And Les has had him the last 3 years and still can't make the playoffs.
No, it's even worse.
He had.
How many players have we talked about on this show today that I had last year and didn't make the playoffs? I had Russell Wilson. I had Mike Thomas.
I'm not going to lie to you.
And he had Derrick Henry.
I said Derrick Henry.
The first year that I joined.
I thought you said Mike Thomas. I didn't hear Derrick Henry. Sorry.
The first year I joined your all's league, I would have probably never made it if that dude would not have dropped Cam Newton.
Yeah, somebody just drops Cam Newton.
Crazy
story.
story.
By the way.
So let me rehash this story for you. So I didn't even know what happened. You know, we did the fantasy draft, and then we went off to Vegas like we usually do. And so that weekend alone is usually just a whirlwind.
So let's pause. Let's start on my end for a second. So I draft my team, and this is a 2-quarterback league, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or an offensive player. The second one's an offensive player. Mainly, you probably use it for a quarterback, but because they put up more points. But so I'm thinking, you know what? I can get my second quarterback in the later rounds, and as I keep pushing it back, I'm like, oh shit, my options are not very good. So my second quarterback at the time was Tyrod Taylor, who was starting for the Browns. So now Spencer, continue.
No, so we draft the league and I get it. We get back. It's Tuesday morning, and everybody's back. Kind of trying to get back into the grind of things. And my buddy texts me. He's the owner of the league or whatever, the commissioner, and he said, "Dumbass Jeremy just dropped Cam Newton trying to get Nick Foles, and then he dropped Nick Foles trying to get Cam Newton back." But you can't do that because Cam Newton's going to go on waivers. And Klucas, he had a really good draft, picked up Cam Newton. And so
let's keep in mind the rest of my team was I had Drew Brees, if I'm remembering correctly. I had Drew Brees was my quarterback that year.
Yep.
And that was the MVP, the debate between who wins MVP or between him and Mahomes. So I had Drew Brees. I had Ezekiel Elliott.
Plus, you had probably the greatest name in fantasy football that year too.
Oh yes, I forgot who it was.
What was my name that year?
Pimpin' Ain't Breezy.
Yeah. Pimpin' Ain't Breezy. Yeah. This year it was Run CMC since I got Christian McCaffrey. So I had Drew Brees. I had Ezekiel Elliott. I'm trying to remember who my receivers were. I think I had Michael Thomas still. I think Michael Thomas was one of them. And I had like a really good I had a really good all-around roster. It's just my second quarterback was just trash. Well, my tight ends are usually always trash in that league, but I just pick up wherever I can.
So at that point, I'm sitting there and I got to go on road because I got to go drive. I get done with my day and I'm going back through the transactions. And he dropped Cam Newton at the airport to go to Vegas. And I'm sitting there. I was just like, Pat, who's the commissioner, I was like, are we going to allow this? And he was like, we got to. We can't just, everything
can't
was
just
done.
Make me drop a player.
No, everything was done legally. There wasn't any, motive behind it. Just because he's a dumbass and there was a benefactor. There's
no rule against being a dumbass.
There's no rule against being a dumbass.
So my side of the story of that is I just, we had just done our draft, and sometimes you go back and after you draft, you read a couple of these fantasy experts, and you're like, you find a couple players on there. They're like, hey, these could be fantasy sleepers this year that you might want to pick up. So I'm like, okay, I read a couple. I knew a couple of them were in our free agency, and I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll just snipe them, put them at the end of my bench. If they break out a couple of weeks, I have them. So I click on our league, click on free agency. And, first thing, anybody that does fantasy football on ESPN, first thing that pops up is just top overall players, and then it goes to quarterbacks. And I'm sitting there, and first top overall player that pops up, it says Cam Newton. I said, wait. There's no way. I said, I know this guy got drafted. I said, there's no way. So I literally closed out the app and went back in. I couldn't believe it. I absolutely couldn't believe it. I closed the app and I went back into it, and he was right there. I was like, all right, so I know how the waiver waiver order works. I was like,
You were
let me go
last.
see. I
you
said,
were
let me go.
first. You were first, so you were
Yeah,
last.
I said, let me go see where I'm at on the waiver order real quick. I was number 1 on the waiver order. I said, oh my God. I pick him, drop Tyrod Taylor, pick up Cam Newton right now.
And so he drafted Lamar Jackson and Cam Newton. Of course, Lamar was his first pick, but that was the year Lamar was a rookie. So
And didn't even
Flacco's the
start
starter
until week 7.
Right. And so Flacco's the starter, and he keeps Lamar on his bench the entire year, gives him up before year 2. I mean, this
Isn't
guy's
this the
got
same
no
guy
luck.
that drafted then Philip Lindsay or had
Yes.
Philip Lindsay?
It was
Yes,
his
he
keeper.
drafted. Yes.
Yes.
We were in the keeper league, so he kept Philip Lindsay from the year before. And he ended up with the number 1 overall pick.
So your keeper pick is always your first pick, and he ended up with the first overall pick. So that's why now the running joke on this show is Philip Lindsay was the number 1 overall pick. And so me going into last year, not knowing what was going on with Zeke in terms of if he was holding out, if he was going to sign the contract, whatever. I said, all right, I'm not taking the risk. I seen guys like Saquon Barkley and Christian McCaffrey were dropping into the draft. I said, I'll take my chances with one of those guys. And of course, lo and behold, 2nd overall pick belongs to me. Guy has Philip Lindsay as his first one. I get the pick. I said, give me the number 1 running back in fantasy last year. I'll take Christian McCaffrey.
But the reason why he dropped Cam Newton the year before was to try to get Nick Foles. But Nick Foles was going to be replaced week 2 or 3 by
Carson Wentz.
And so Carson Wentz steps in. He only had Nick Foles for a week, and he gave up Cam Newton, who had a pretty decent year.
For a second quarterback for me when I already had Drew Brees, yeah, it was exactly what I needed.
And so Jacob went from like 3rd in the league before the draft or after the draft to like number 1 in the league. And
I think I finished.
He had
finished the year
most points, number 1 seed. Had some
I
bad
still
luck
couldn't
in
win
the playoffs, but
because I got fucking bad luck for the 1 week. Spencer picks up Sam freaking Darnold, and he decides to have a great week.
And his running back too. Let me tell you, when they threw that 75-yard touchdown to that running back, it was over.
I'd never been so mad in my life. I wouldn't have been as mad if it wasn't that I lost to Spencer.
Well, you know what's really upsetting when I'm in
Darnold.
this league, Spencer and Klucas, is that I always start the season super slow. But I always make a run right before playoffs, and I'm always on the outside looking in. And it always comes down to the very last
I think last year.
season.
And last year you were like a half a game away from making the
half a game.
If I would have
half a game, 5 points.
I was like 5 points away from making the playoffs last year, and what's ironic is that I went on my run once I signed Sam Darnold. It's really ironic about that. So Sam Darnold, I guess.
Sam Darnold is the key.
He is the key.
Man, you got to find those quarterbacks that are
when he's
always
not seeing
down. They
ghosts.
got a bad defense. You got to find the quarterbacks in fantasy that have a bad defense. They're always playing from behind, and they're jacking the ball in the 3rd and 4th quarter. Meaningless points and yards.
When Sam Darnold is not seeing ghosts, he is a fantasy sleeper.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Absolutely.
So, but moving back to Roy Jones Jr., man, I had Roy Jones Jr. Can't Be Touched in my headphones for a long time in college. Can't Be Touched.
It's a great song.
Yep, can't beat it. Can't beat it.
But anyways, I think we got about another half hour left on the show.
Hold on. Who's he got? I forgot. Mike Tyson or Roy? In an unofficial score.
I have Roy.
You have Roy? Okay.
Yeah.
Are you good, Spencer?
I'm good.
Can I move on now?
Yes.
Are you sure? All right. So it's looking like the light is finally at the end of the tunnel, and that sports are finally back, something that all 4 of us and anybody watching the show has been waiting a long time. Thank you. Yes. Now I'm going to leave this a pretty open-ended question that I think we can just spin off for the rest of the show. You know, baseball's been back for about 1 to 2 weeks now. The NBA had its first regular season matchups this week. What are some of your early takeaways of sports being back?
Let's start with baseball. Shane Bieber, early Cy Young favorite.
I would say, what's he got, like 66 strikeouts in his first 2 starts or something like that? Or not,
26 Ks in his first 2
66?
days.
That's insane.
Sorry, 27. 27. 27 Ks in his first 2 starts.
Sorry, it's a record. It's an Indians record since 1966. That's where I got the 66 from. I was like, that'd be 33 strikeouts a game. That's like 6.
You're throwing 33 strikeouts a game. You literally just pitched a whole 18-inning game.
Right. It's like you're getting 6 more outs a game than what is actually a 9-inning game. That's crazy. That would be really impressive, though.
Yeah. No,
I do want to bring up a meme that I saw, and I actually looked it up, and it actually is a real thing. That one of the season ticket holders for the Cubs, it was upset that he didn't get to play, so they put the cardboard cutout in left field of what's his name?
Steve Bartman.
Yeah, they put the cardboard
Bartman.
cutout of Steve Bartman in left field on the left field line. I do think that's pretty funny.
That's brutal.
That is so brutal. And they put it in his
It's
seat.
a great 30 for 30 though, if y'all haven't watched it.
Oh no.
It's
bad.
petty and cruel at the same time.
Yes. It's a very good documentary.
But
He's talking about the cutout, not the documentary.
No. The documentary's very good, and the cardboard cutout was my level of petty.
Oh yeah, 100%.
It definitely a Spencer level petty joke right now.
If you know what, I will save enough money just for you, Spencer, that if we have a college football season, I want a cardboard cutout in the back of the Miami Hurricanes end zone of Terry Porter in the back of the end zone.
I'm calling my good friend, the former Sebastian the Ibis mascot, telling him not to even consider that.
There's no fun in that. But speaking of college football, if we have a college football season, a lot of teams are more moving towards the conference-only schedule, which is a smart move, at least for region-wise. But at the same time, for a lot of fans, it's disappointing that we're not going to be able to get a lot of the rivalry matchups. I know the big topic around here is that the U of L UK game isn't going to be played, and of course you go countrywide, across the country, the Florida State game, the Clemson South Carolina game, that's not going to be played. So that's kind of
111 years they played it?
Yeah, exactly. And now they're not going to play it this year. I mean, it's just brutal for the history.
For those ones that are the in-state matchups, I don't understand why they don't allow.
Because in a lot of ways,
somebody made a
Kentucky and
great
Louisville
point.
are closer than a lot of the SEC teams that they play.
There's 400 miles between Kentucky, Florida, and all these, but you can't let a 70-mile drive from Lexington to Louisville happen to allow them to play.
Well, I mean, I thought Miami is still considering, as their one extra game, because they're playing 10 games in the ACC, their one extra game is still going to be one of their non-conference opponents between UAB, Temple, or I want to say the third one was Wagner.
But it's not going to be Florida. We know that.
Is that because of the SEC?
Yes, it's because of the SEC.
See, that's where I think it's dumb. And what I really want to see is if the NCAA, as far as basketball goes, makes so much money off a U of L UK game. Is college basketball going to allow that to happen as well?
Oh, more than likely, absolutely. They're going to lose too much money.
I will like to comment about a couple of comments that I made in the past about the COVID thing, especially in regards to the NBA. NBA, it's been proven that they've done it right.
Oh, absolutely.
And if it continues and they can continue this trend and keep the bubble clean, I do think that the playoffs can go off with either a small hitch or no hitch at all. But when you look at the Major League Baseball right now, I mean, there's too much, like I've said before, with Americans, there's too much independency. And they have too much I'm not going to say that we have too much liberty, but when you have liberties, you're always going to, toe that line, especially when there's rules in place.
I think the
between
word
Major League
that
Baseball-
I think the word that would be better used there is that we have too much entitlement.
Sure. Especially when you signed an agreement that says you're not going to do certain things.
Mm-hmm.
See, I don't understand why Major League Baseball didn't do like a bubble thing.
They
Still.
could. I agree with you, Klucas. I mean, there's no fans. You're getting on airplanes. You're exposing yourself with more contact to stewardess, to airports that you're flying into, to wherever. You can just go to, Scottsdale, down to Florida, wherever. Have 4 bubbles, and
See, and I
go
wouldn't
from
be
there.
shocked if I wouldn't be shocked if the NFL starts to make this movement now that they're seeing what the NBA is doing compared to what the MLB is doing. I wouldn't be shocked to see if they try to make a transition into somewhat of a bubble to try
I
to
do want to add,
to ensure that they're going to have a season.
and I do want to add though that a lot of the success that the NBA is having with this bubble, and the 2 straight weeks without any positive COVID testing within the NBA players, a lot of that was foreshadowed with the TBT tournament. So, they were taking multiple tests. They had their own bubble, and they had it had a lot of success. So it was good to see that it was kind of foreshadowed prior to actually coming into fruition this go around. But
I'm very concerned though, as far as college athletics. Professional sports can do this. They have that luxury.
Mhm.
Collegiate and high school.
Yeah, you can't tell players that they got to be. You can't tell players who are actually students at these colleges that they got to be away for 4 months and they can't do anything. Like they can't attend classes and the fact that there's too many schools to do it with too.
Mhm.
Dr. Fauci came out yesterday, I believe, and said that he believes that we might have a vaccine by the end of the year. But if you've done any reading or research on vaccine histories,
This would be the soonest. This would be the very
7
earliest.
to 8 months is really rushing it. So there's still going to be some trial and error involved in it, and I'm really concerned as far as college and high school, and I'm still concerned about Major League Baseball. Talking about the NBA, I don't even know when they would restart the 2020-2021 season.
There's a restart. It's supposed to be in December is when they would restart.
In the middle of
really
the
only,
flu
and
season.
now it's looking
You would
at
have
And
to do another bubble. You would
Yeah,
almost have to do another
and that's
bubble.
what they already said. They said they're already looking into the 2020-21 season being played all inside the bubble.
And do you think the players, after going through the first bubble this time, do you think there'll be a players' agreement to that?
I think if they're playing basketball,
I think it would come down.
absolutely.
I think it would. Yeah, it would come down to look, guys. It's either we play or we don't.
It's a very sobering reality we have in 2020.
So then, at that point, you're going to come down to who really wants to play basketball and who really is here for all just the money, and that's it.
It's true. I mean, we haven't even mentioned the fact that you got 6 Patriots who aren't going to play. You got various other individuals who decided they're not going to play because of the risk factor involved with COVID and putting their families and loved ones first. So
I think C.J. Mosley is the next big name that just decided he's going to sit out.
Yep. So
I can see him
Definitely
being drafted
uncertain.
number 1 in fantasy.
C.J. Mosley.
No, we already
just
know.
somebody. Just somebody.
First of all, we knew from the day that he announced that he was coming back. We know who Spencer's first pick in fantasy is.
Oh, Gronk. You know it.
He's taking Gronk.
Gronk.
My man
baby.
drafted Gronk last year and he retired.
Hey, it was the last pick, and I was just like, I have a feeling he's going to come back. We all found out that it was just because of Belichick. Didn't want to play for Belichick. So,
Nope. Outside of that, sports are back for the most part. And let's just hope that every league can figure out their own way of how to do it, like the NBA is.
Absolutely. Adam
interesting
Silver
article.
proves time and time again that he is the best commissioner in sports.
Very good. Very good commissioner. Very good commissioner. Can't argue with that.
Michael Porter Jr. messed up a couple months back. He actually posted Adam Silver's number on social media. me, like probably a million other Americans, actually tried to text Adam Silver, and he did not respond. So I'm very disappointed. But that shows that he has more important things to do than to text me. So
Right.
Well, I would sure hope so.
well,
One,
maybe now that we have the show, he'd love to text me back and hop on.
Sure. That'd be cool.
That'd be an insane show.
I mean,
I think we would all have to make sure that we are dressed up to par.
I might even shave my head and wear my glasses just so I can kind of look like him. Make him feel at home.
Oh my gosh. No, I was reading an interesting article about the Clippers and Lakers this morning, and it was talking about Anthony Davis and LeBron James and how the Clippers were built to beat LeBron, but they don't have an answer for Anthony Davis. And it went into some of the aspects of the basketball game. The first time they played, Anthony Davis got to the line 14 times. And most recently, the other night, he got to the free throw line 17 times. And you really just cannot control Anthony Davis. The Clippers haven't found a way to control him yet,
Mm-hmm.
So I did find that very interesting.
I think if we're talking about going back to the NBA, we obviously, given the fact that the Clippers and Lakers preseason were the two teams that were headlined, obviously the Bucks in the Eastern Conference, but I'm going to name three teams that I think, given the scenario that we're playing in, could make some serious noise in the playoffs. Not saying this because I'm a fan. The Miami Heat can make a lot of noise. Just they play so gritty and tough, and they defend well, they shoot well. The only thing they're missing is a real floor general to cut down on the turnovers, and they miss that rim protection when Bam Adebayo goes out. Other than that, I mean, we saw it today against Denver. If anybody caught that game, they defend well.
Kelly Olynyk.
Yeah, it helps Kelly Olynyk. Let's just score 20 in the fourth quarter just for the hell of it. So I'd much rather him do that than dislocate Kevin Love's shoulder or something like that. But anyways, but no, I think Miami's a real scary team, especially given the circumstances. They're a very hungry team. I think that's what's scary. Another team that really stands out is the Grizzlies. They're playing really well right now. I mean, it's just so how well Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson, and Brandon Clark are just playing off of each other. They just play with so much youth and swagger to them, and
the real sleeper on that Grizzlies team is Dylan Brooks.
Oh, absolutely, he's the floor spacer.
He's the lights out shooter that team needed. Their needs, and he plays defense.
Morant and Clark don't get a lot of the looks inside without guys like Brooks, and of course Jaren Jackson can step out too. But the third team. And, of course, it's going to be kind of awkward because they don't play a lot of defense. They lost last night. But I think Dallas can make some serious noise just with how efficient their offense is. When they're on, they're on. You're not going to outscore them. The only problem is, can they get the stops?
And here's a team I'm going to rebuttal with, and it's the team that played Dallas last night, the Rockets.
Mm-hmm.
The Rockets played, I think, last night when you look at in terms of them playing well together – I think last night was the first time I've seen Russell Westbrook and James Harden played that well together.
That's a fair point. They played very well together.
They played that very well together. And if you look at the box score and you look at and if you watch the game, they only played 8 guys last night.
I know.
In an overtime game. Now, granted, yes, you can make that long. In the long run, that's going to hurt them. But if they can be able to do those things, and you have guys like James Harden and Russell Westbrook. And if Russell Westbrook's going to play the way he did last night, yes, Westbrook had 30, but it wasn't your typical Westbrook 30.
It was early, but he was more efficient. It later. He shaped it up later on.
It wasn't as efficient as you would like it to be, but it was still efficient to Westbrook standards. We'll put it that way.
Exactly.
But I was watching the game last night, and that's where I meant early on in the game, it looked like your stereotypical Westbrook. He's forcing shots, all that, but he really tuned in later on as the game progressed, so that was good to see.
And him and James Harden seemed like they were on the same wavelength all night, and so If you can
So a
get
couple
two
things I'm gonna-
superstars like that to be on the same wavelength,
I'm going to add a couple things about the Rockets too. And I was very skeptical of the Westbrook and James Harden combination preseason. I think anybody who follows the page is aware of that. But they've really surprised me as how well they play together. They kind of, with how well the Rockets space the floor, it really gives Westbrook the best opportunity to do what he does best and attack the rim. So it gives him so many open driving lanes. And I'm going to take a page out of Mark Jackson's playbook last night, and I think he made a very good point. The key for the Rockets to be able to run this small ball lineup are the guys like the Robert Covingtons and the P.J. Tuckers, the guys that are small enough to space the floor on the offensive side of the ball but are tough enough to defend the bigs on the defensive side of the ball. That's where a lot of the success running this lineup comes. And so to go back to Klucas' point, yeah, the Rockets look like they're surprising, or they're turning a lot of heads as far as, because it's not the most orthodox way to looking team, but it's very effective at this point.
yeah, and it's kind of like Wes. I know you remember because he was in our fantasy league. Me and Dale were talking about it. Like originally, I didn't agree with what they were when they traded Capella, that they were wanting to go complete small ball. You know, Robert Covington, P.J. Tucker playing your 4 and 5 spot. But then when you think about it, when you're playing against the teams like the Jokic's and the Rudy Gobert's and all that, you know, because you have guys like that, yes, can it hurt you on the opposite end of the floor? It can, yes. But when you're looking at it on the Rockets' offensive point of view, you're taking those guys completely out to the perimeter.
Mm-hmm,
they don't have a choice but to guard the perimeter. You can't just say, well, we're just going to leave Rudy Gobert down there and let P.J. Tucker and Robert Covington shoot, because we all know one of those guys get hot alongside a Westbrook or a James Harden, it could be a very long night for you.
Very.
So when you're spacing the floor like that, yes, like you said, it plays into what Westbrook wants to do and drive off. If Gobert or somebody like that helps, you got to kick.
Okay, well, anytime we're talking about Westbrook, maybe not necessarily what Westbrook wants to do, because I don't think Westbrook knows what he wants to do half the time.
Westbrook
but I think
plays based off who he's playing against.
But it plays into what Westbrook needs to do to play at his best.
Westbrook plays based off who he's playing against.
And that's sometimes
if he's playing against Damian Lillard, he's jacking up probably 13 threes that game.
And you don't want that.
Nope.
Oh my gosh. You just made an excellent point, though. He's so focused on the one guy, the one-on-one, that he doesn't even understand the bigger picture.
Nope, and that's why you notice, like, when he's playing against Steph and Dame and he hears all these guys, these guys are better than him. And they're like, so, you know, you get Damian Lillard and Steph that come down and hit a three. Westbrook, I could do that too. You're not as good as them.
You're forcing shots. Not to say that he can't hit threes, but when you're forcing things, it's not in rhythm. You're not going to.
And then these guys are getting in his head, essentially. It's taking him out of his own game.
And it's a call by Mark Jackson. I was watching a game a while back. This is, to give you an idea how far back this is back when Kevin Durant and Westbrook were both on the Thunder. And
10 years ago.
This play that sums up Westbrook to a T. Mark Jackson, Westbrook comes down with the ball, and he just takes off. Right as Mark Jackson is trying to get out, that Westbrook needs to slow the ball down. He gets about this far. Westbrook needs to slow. Okay. As he's saying, okay, jacks up some stupid shot that just doesn't even come anywhere close to the rim. And that right there sums up Russell Westbrook to a T.
Yep. I can hear Mark Jackson say it. Okay.
Hey,
okay.
Last
he really wanted to say something after okay, but
Mark Jackson's really not one to shy away from saying stuff, though. You know, this is the same guy who on live air said that he would knock LeBron James's wife out of the park.
He did not say that. Did he?
Yes,
no,
he did.
He did.
For whatever reason, the conversation went to LeBron's wife.
To Savannah. He's like,
Savannah's a beautiful woman. I'd knock her out of the park.
No, he was talking about how smart she was. And he goes, she's, smart, she's loyal, and I'd knock her out of the park.
You can say that she's beautiful in a different way.
You can.
Les, I don't know if you got it playing in the background, but I don't mean to scare you, but Zion just went out with an ankle sprain.
No, I saw. I'm watching it right now. Yeah, I got it on. So I've been watching it this whole time. But
So much for minutes restrictions that happened in the first couple. That's
right.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Doctor.
Oh, they actually let them play.
Waiting
they
on...
let them actually play 4 minutes in the second quarter this go around instead of 3. So that's we were trending in the right direction. But no,
I'm just waiting on winning this bubble. I'm just waiting on winning this bubble. Is Kawhi going to load manage?
I give it like 2 more games and he's load managing.
I would almost guarantee the next game he's load managing.
Kawhi?
But I'm going to be honest, though. Yeah. The only ankle injury I'm concerned with right now is my crush, Sabrina Ionescu's grade 3 ankle sprain. She's going to be out for another month, and I'm very sad about it.
Les, I'm starting to get very worried about you. You've got a son in the sports world. You got a crush. Starting to worry about you, bro.
Sports are life. My son is engaged. My girl is
and she is corrupting his mind. Thankfully, we don't have TikTok anymore because I have seen some of our players' TikToks with their girlfriends, and let's just put it this way, wish it didn't.
Yeah, speaking of players and TikToks, I'm going to have a conversation with my son after we get off of the show about his most recent TikTok. So
right before we get on the show, we get this picture from Spencer here, and all we get is, hey, I just have to ask, what is your boy doing? And it's Trevor Lawrence in like a full-out women's soccer uniform with the short shorts and the short jersey and all.
You couldn't really see his face, but I saw the freckle on his abdomen, and I know it was him.
Hand on the hip and everything, and I was like.
The video, which much worse, I just got a quick screenshot off on it. I was like, what is he doing? And he's actually twirling around and shaking his ass. And I'm sitting there and it's like, dude, really? We're doing this right now?
Yeah, me and him are going to have a talk after the show. I'm going to call him up real quick. We got about 3 minutes left in the show. So the quicker these 3 minutes go by, the quicker I can get him on the phone and be like, yo, what are you doing, man? I understand if you want to sit out this year, but you ain't going to be sitting out to do that shit. I promise you.
No.
Well. Anybody else got anything else?
Well, I mean, I still think AD is the number 1 player in the Lakers. So
I think we're gonna have to continue this topic.
Yeah, I'm done.
I had it right here. I
don't want to. I don't want to get into this.
We got like 2 minutes left. All right.
I'm not getting into this, bro.
We're not getting into it right now. I think we're gonna have. This is gonna be an ongoing topic.
We've seen what
more points, more rebounds, more steals, more blocks, more better.
They literally average the same amount of steals, Spencer.
No, they don't. It's 1.5 to 0.5
on steals.
Yeah,
I care about one stat.
Hold on, no, but win shares, offensive win shares, offensive.
Yeah.
Hold on, player officiation rating, win shares, offensive win shares, defensive win shares. He's better.
I have not seen any of those win share stats that are favoring Anthony Davis. Defensive, probably.
Just let me ask
I can't see your phone, Spencer. It's blurry.
Oh,
okay.
You know what? I will.
You know what?
Fine. Just let me. How many wins do the Lakers get if LeBron doesn't play this year and it's just Anthony Davis?
They're looking at an 8 seed at best.
No, not even that.
Come on.
No, they're looking at an 8 seed at best. But anyways,
we've seen what happens when an AD-led team. We've seen it. We saw it in New Orleans, and they made it to the playoffs twice
in 7 years.
If you're sitting there thinking that they're only going to put 4 players out there, yeah, I could see them being an 8 seed with just AD out there.
Oh, here he goes. Oh, we ain't got time for it. All right.
So we're not even going to replace the point guard.
I'm getting off with this troll. Come on.
All right.
It's not troll, man. Hey,
that's
numbers don't lie. Lil Wayne.
This conversation is to be continued, but this is all
Fuck
the time
everything.
we
Winning
have
is
for today.
everything. Fuck everything else.
Winning is my God. That's Spencer's words. Exactly.
It's true.
Remember it.
It's true.
But
And I'm telling you, man, they're not winning. The Clippers can shut down LeBron. They can't shut down AD.
this conversation is going to have to go on for another episode. But thank you for everyone who chimes in and listens to this madness that was the Less is More Sports podcast episode. Until next time, I'm your host, Les Abbott.
Jacob Klucas.
Spence.
Matt Wilson.
All right, we're out.
See you guys.
See ya.